Hello there. My name is T.R. Welling, and I'm going to go through another of my sequence on my tarot deck. Um, the the major arcana and the major arcana, the court, and the suits. You have the cups, swords, wands, try the first part, the female part of try, the first part of try, Pinnacles, and the second part of try back to Cups. Temple of Venus, the Colosseum, the temple, the House of Claudius, the aqueduct between the Claudius and the Domus Julii, and the Domus Julii, and a walkway bridgeway called aqueduct between the Domus Julii and the temple of Julia of Venus, and you have the court, the stuff that's going on between the western edge of well, it's actually kind of more like that direction, and this is actually also configured more like that. That's configured semi correctly. That's configured correctly. This would be more like that. Architecturally speaking, this would be more much more accurate to the actual architectural configuration of these buildings, and more importantly, what they did, because you have the reason why I say there's a aqueduct in here is because there's an aqueduct here, and then you're not gonna climb down 200 feet, 200 plus feet, go through commoners in order to be able to climb back up the ladder and the staircase and the such to be able to enter the Temple of Venus. Better to go from the top, the whatever floor you want to from here across the bridge into the third floor or the one of the floors of the Temple of Venus. Going down and then back up through 200 to 300 feet is just dumb. So, especially if the family is unbelievably rich, they have more than enough money to be able to just build a bridge across, and there's plenty of architectural evidence to point to. They just built a bridge across, and well, actually, they would have built several bridges across, and over the 1,000 plus years that the Domus Julii the Julia family owned and operated the Domus Julii, and then they owned and operated and rebuilt and rebuilt and rebuilt two, possibly three times the temple of Temple of Venus. Now, the reason why I make this configuration is because water flows this way, which means there's a quantum connection here. Especially if you have magnets in these buildings, which they absolutely did, because they were almost entirely made of quartz, marble, and limestone and the like. Then when you compress quartz, it releases electricity, which is the definition of a magnet. So you have lots and lots of electricity, and you have marble that's continuity of marble in here, continuity of gold that's connecting these buildings. So you have a flow from the release of the electricity from the quartz in the marble, the limestone, and the other materials that make up, that flows into the gold and then makes a circuit. Well, this being a closed circuit, along with there's a road through here. There's a road the this over. Yeah, that's better. Sorry for that framing for a second. I was thinking about something else. You have the Western Forum here. You have the area between the Temple of Caesar on the edge, which is actually kind of more like this, but it's a circle arch. You have the buildings from the eastern side of the Temple of Caesar to the edge of the Temple of Venus. these collection of buildings would be the court, and you have you have a basilica here, and you have Castor and Pollux here, and you have a building that's directly behind, that's directly west of the Temple of Caesar. You have a building, a separate older building that was then added to by the basilica. There's a building. There's a building here. There's the Temple of Caesar, and then you have the Temple of the Vestal Virgin. There you have a three sequence buildings right here. The basilica was added onto this the farthest north building here a couple times. The basilica was built and rebuilt a few times. That was connected to there. So you have three across, which would be a representation of the Celtic cross spread. The porch was the porch of west of Temple of Caesar was a different. They did things on the porch. They did things in the building, and the building had a first floor, a second floor, and a third floor. And in that configuration, you have the Celtic cross spread. You have of course, you have the 1, the 2, the 1, 2, the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then the 7, 8, 9, and 10 of this would be the Palatine Hill. That, architecturally speaking, is the Celtic cross spread. And as you have the Celtic cross spread all laid out in this configuration, you have what the building's intent was, the purpose of these buildings and these compounds and these buildings that are basically right here in this situation, is that the buildings were intended to be used for what their meanings and purposes is in the Celtic cross spread. So you got some interesting stuff going on regarding, okay, this building was built for X purpose, and that purpose is written into the Celtic cross spread. Statistically speaking, most of the entire scholastic and academic and other types of studies indicate that although studies are universally understanding to be what the Celtic cross spread is understanding, represents, and is all about, and those buildings represent all of that. The spread, the suits, the court, the major arcana, their positions, and these are the buildings over here. This is all works in a synchronistic, codependent relationship with each other. The buildings, the Celtic cross, the buildings, the Celtic cross spread, the suits, major arcana, this court, it all works together. You have the cups, swords, wands, pentacles, and the other side of tri. Now this is feminine, this is masculine. The course of the day, this would be morning, midday, afternoon, dusk, night, dawn, back to morning. In the year, you have spring, summer, fall, what has been defined as Indian summer. You have winter, and then the Groundhog's Day, 6 weeks, whether or not winter is coming or going away. Then you have back to spring. So it's the same math applied to the two different types of ways of identifying and tracking the passage and the coverage of time, being a day, being a year. You have the Colosseum here that is in the configuration of the configuration is in the Earth's orbit around the sun. This is pretty close to the configuration of the Earth's orbit. It's also the configuration of how the Colosseum is laid out. This oval is pretty close. So you have a lot of interesting things going on all at the same time. But this specific talk is going to be about King Solomon's Temple, which makes things really, really funky and really, really interesting, because King Solomon's Temple, This is not something that most readers are interested in dealing with, because most readers are really not big fans of Christianity, the Catholic Church, Protestantism, so on, because the Catholic Church has spent 15, 17, 1900 years, more 18-ish, 100 years, seeking out and killing, mass murdering, genociding any and everyone who would question their authority, and psychic readers and tarot readers and scholars and the like were all sought out and left off their mortal coil for doing information about this. So it's difficult, but in the Synoptic Gospels, it is very clear, especially I'm thinking it's either Matthew. I think it's Matthew. Mark may have mentioned it, but I'm pretty sure it's Matthew. One of the Gospels of Matthew, one of the verses of Matthew, talks about going to Jerusalem, which is that way by several hundred miles, not 1,000 miles, the Levant lands. That going to Levant lands, and what Jesus talked about, although that's a title, not a name. It kind of means rabbi, but only sort of. He said that the direction was to dismantle, not that the Temple of Solomon would be destroyed, but he said dismantle it, move every single solitary rock, brick, carved stone, the whole nine, everything, move it from there to here. And as you get it to here, reassemble the great temple on this city of pillars, which was a city of pillars. Nero sectioned this building out specifically for destruction, had this city of pillars destroyed in an excessively nasty way, and then had his Domus Aurea built in its place. Vespasian came in behind him, destroyed that building, and built the Colosseum in its place using the same materials. So the materials of the Colosseum, the building, which recycled the materials from the Domus Aurea, and the Domus Aurea recycled the materials from both the City of Pillars and King Solomon's Temple, which all Freemasons should be pretty familiar with this aspect. The Colosseum was then, with the City of Pillars was reconstructed over the course of a couple decades under the direction of Emperor Claudius, and the materials from King Solomon's Temple, I theorize, was used to build this, and then those materials were then recycled into the Colosseum, which 1350-ish years later, these were the materials from the outer two most southern walls of the Colosseum were dismantled, shipped 2 miles, dead on 2 miles that direction, to the northern, about 20 feet away from the northern portion of St. Peter's Basilica, and assembled into the Sistine Chapel. And there is a painting in the Sistine Chapel, the west wall of the Sistine Chapel specifically, that could be a representation of a person standing approximately right here on the edge of the Temple of Venus, which this edge right here is where the Arch of Titus is, and that the painting here depict going this direction. Well, was above ground, now is below ground. There's a lake, a marsh, a waterway from the Tiberus River to the Tiberus River that goes that direction, that reconnects that direction around the hill of the Cilion Hill. Well, this was a waterway. This was an open, flowing waterway, which pumps and various assorted architecture dammed up this waterway, but it's still wet. Go down deep enough underneath the Colosseum, and you'll hit water not that far down, several feet, 10 feet, 15 feet, somewhere there. You're going to hit water, and you're going to hit a lot of it. So it took a lot of engineering to get the water table that far down instead of being almost on the surface and then dumping backfill into it in order to be able to create that level ground. But that water means that the painting the fresco of the west wall of the Sistine Chapel, which is perfectly, it's a perfect line from the southernmost outer wall of the Colosseum straight through this the middle of the Archititus to the center of the to the Sistine Chapel. That makes a straight line. That straight line connects the Temple of Solomon remains the materials from it here and the materials used 2 miles dead that direction. So there's a lot of interesting things going on. But what's even more interesting is that here recently, I'm gathering some evidence that the Temple of Venus was actually designed as a copy of, either pre or post, King David, his grandson, King Solomon, created a copy of the Temple of Tyre in Levant lands, which is the temple that Jesus supposedly did his whipping thing to the money changers. And that, whether or not that building very soon after Jesus did that, he ordered that building dismantled, brought here and reassembled, but then it was destroyed and reassembled into the Domus Aurea, and then disassembled and reassembled into the Colosseum. Why? Because the Roman Empire had a major, profoundly huge, major, undescribable, unmeasurable problem with the upstart Christianity, the upstart Christians, the upstart followers of Jesus, the upstart followers of Simon Peter, and sort of the upstart followers of the evil priest Paul. Now, the reason why I say the evil priest Paul is because that's what his name is. They call him the evil priest Paul. All of the surviving apostles in the Dead Sea Scrolls call him the Dead Sea Scrolls are letters back and forth between the men, and those scrolls they all called him the evil priest, and he spent all of his time in those letters defending his inappropriate actions with them and other people, and gaining power, building a ministry, building an army, and then going strong against all who opposed him. But the Temple of Venus very, very likely is a copy of the Temple of Solomon, which means that the Temple of Solomon, the Temple of Solomon, the Temple of Tyre, and the Temple of Venus would be copies of each other, which would be, all three of those buildings would be a copy of a major temple in Memphis, and a major temple, or the major temple in Memphis and Heliopolis. Heliopolis is actually not a hieroglyphic word. Heliopolis is actually a Greek word. The original one translation back into Hebrew, into hieroglyphics, and then into a different aspect of Hebrew, and a different aspect of English would be, well, sort of English, would be that that the translation of Heliopolis is actually Jerusalem, because Jera is Elder Futhark. This is Fehu of the Elder Futhark. This is Rado, Uruz, Esau, Ingwaz, dagas to randomly go through it. This configuration, the Elder Futhark, the 12th character in the Elder Futhark is spelled Jeru or A, depending on which culture and which language, because some of these linguistics, some of this etymology, they don't use an actual character of the U or the A, any of the vowels. They either leave it out or leave an accent grave in order to be able to indicate that a vowel goes there. Which one? That's entirely based on the speaker's, I don't know, the culture's, I don't know. That's a different video. So you have the city of Jera, which was a sacred city. It's a sacred city of the sun, which in Greek translates to, which in not Greek but in hieroglyphics, the sacred city translates to Opolis. Well, if it's a sacred city, then in Hebrew, sacred city translates to Salem. So you have the 12th character, which the 12th character in the Elder Futhark translates to sun, time, or new day. So you have the sun character and the Helios character. The word Helios in Greek, means literally the new day, the sun. The heliosphere, it's the sun. So you have Jera, sun, time, new day. So Helios and Jera mean exactly the same thing. So you have the sacred city of the sun, Jerusalem, is exactly the translation of Heliopolis, which is Greek. Why is a city that is 3, 4, 5,000 years older than the invention of Hebrew, why does it have a Greek name when it existed thousands of years before the language of Greek was even a glimmer in the oldest scholar's mind that created the language of Greek? So there's a lot of questions about that going on, and a whole mountain of anti-Semitism and other inappropriate behavior. But so you have Heliopolis, you have Memphis, and you have the way down south of Egypt. You have the city of Heracleopolis. I'm not pronouncing it correctly. Hirakonopolis. So you have Hierapolis, Opolis. So you have that city configuration. It was conquered at 3800 BC, and the residents moved to both Memphis, although it wasn't called that then. It was still being called Lutz, as in Jacob left the city of Lutz to head northwest to the light place, Jera, in order to be able to do whatever he did. He slept on the stones, and that night he dreamt of building a ladder so that angels could ascend and descend from that ladder. Well, how does this apply here? Well, one, the pyramids have the Aten built into them, and that event took place right before the construction of the pyramids that took 300+ years. And the Aten is built into the causeways of the pyramids. There's 16 causeways, 16 pyramids. It's an interesting configuration. Also, drawing a line from here straight through here, 1,300 miles that direction, straight through the middle of the forum, you're going to hit the middle of the back of Janus. And Janus is, if you draw a line from Djedefre Pyramid to the Khufu Pyramid to the Khafre Menkaure, all the way down to the Bent, you're dealing with it draws the double spine of Janus. One spine looking west, one spine looking east. And if you hadn't noticed, that's just off center from true west, and that's east. So you have the Janus west and east. So the pyramids, Janus is the same subject, and this entire culture revolved around the concepts of Janus and performing the ceremony Memento Mori, MEM ENTO MORI. That the entire everything about these buildings was a reflection of performing that ceremony. The Colosseum was entirely about the ceremony, because you have to have which is depicted, the parade part of that ceremony is depicted inside the north inside wall of the Archititus, which is right here. The southern wall, inside wall of the Archititus right here, depicts the sacking of Jerusalem and bringing back, and bringing back the stones of King Solomon's temple to put here, and in part here. Now, getting back to that point that I was making several minutes ago, is that if you have water going from here into here and then here into here, then then there's a bunch of water that ends up here. So, and the inside of the building is all about the goddess Venus, which is all about water and shells and the flowing of water and fountains and the like. So saying that there's a waterfall in this building, or at least one, if not two waterfalls in this building, would be a reasonable conclusion off of that idea. So if this is a copy of King Solomon's temple, then it's only reasonable to assume that the other buildings involved, Tyre and Solomon's temple, Memphis, Heliopolis, Herculopolis, all those buildings, if they were reasonable copies of each other, then they would all have a built-in waterfall and fountains inside, which makes things kind of interesting for a structural, architectural point of view, as well as architecturally. There's a graphic that has been developed that actually looks not unlike this configuration from the surface, although it's a little bit more like this, which is actually a little bit closer to the actual configuration, because this is not lined up. This is not lined up perfectly with this building, or this building is much wider, but it's also longer, much longer. This side-to-side direction is that this makes a loop, and then down, then a loop, and then a wormhole down. So electromagnetic wormhole. Tilted this direction, that means that would places the wormhole here, and then you have a up and around, and then drop down through the wormhole, and then the wormhole, the base of it dumps into here, around, up, climbs up, and then goes down. There's a famous artist who did drawings that were multidimensional, similar to that. And this is a similar aspect to that configuration. And so you have some very interesting stuff happening in there. In my next videos, now that I have the deck cut this direction and that direction, I can go through each individual card and start giving explanations as to the number sequences and number information. So thank you very much for watching. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and if you could, hit the bell down there that indicates that you want to see more of my stuff. So thank you so much for your time.